We want to sketch the graph of the function sine of the quantity 3x minus 1/4 pi. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what the period is, and we know the period for a sine x graph is 2 pi, so the period of this one will be 2 pi over what's sitting out in front of the x there, our omega, and that's 3. So the period is 2 pi thirds, and we normally determine the amplitude as well, and that's just 1. There is no vertical shift because there's nothing stuck here on the end, added on the end. And there is a phase shift. This is the phase angle, so I'm going to determine the phase shift. I'm just going to put PS for phase shift by taking what's in the parentheses, putting it equal to 0, and solving it. Now, 1/4 pi is the same thing as pi over 4. You can write it either way. Kind of in trig, we usually write them like I just wrote it, but either way is fine. Let's solve this for x. So we've got 3x equals pi fourths because I just added pi fourths to both sides. And then the last thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 3 so that I get the x alone. So there's my phase shift. It's pi over 3 times 4, or pi twelfths. Now it's positive, so I know that is shifted to the right by pi twelfths. All right, I have enough info now. I'm ready to draw the graph. So I'm going to draw my axes here, and I'm going to label 1, 2, 3, and the fourth one is going to be my period, which is 2 pi thirds. So halfway back is pi thirds, and half of that is pi sixths. So each tick mark is pi sixths. I'm going to do one more cycle here, so that would be at 4 pi thirds, and I'm going to do one back this other way, 1, 2, 3. So this one, the fourth one over here, will be negative 2 pi thirds. My amplitude was 1, so I'm going to go above and below by 1. And now I'm ready to figure out the graph. And what I like to do is I like to figure out where it would be without the phase shift, and I put x's when I do that. And then I'm going to shift all those points over to get the phase shift. So here I am doing a sine graph. At 0, sine x is 0, so I'm going to put an x here. And then next it would go maximum, cross, minimum, cross, maximum, cross, minimum, cross. And going back the other direction, I have a minimum, cross, maximum, cross. So that's what this would have been like if it was just a sine 3x. Now I'm going to apply the phase shift by taking each point and moving it to the right by pi twelfths. Well, pi twelfths is half of pi sixths, so I'm going to take and move them halfway between each tick mark. So take this one, move it over half, this one, move it over a half, and so forth on all of my x's so that I can get that shifted the right place. And I'll go ahead and slide all of these over by pi twelfths to the right as well. And then I'm going to join that up, and that's my graph. Now, I would not even work with the computer graph until you have it drawn here, because once you have it drawn you can pick out a couple of key points, and then it's going to be very easy to use that computer to graph it. Since it is a sine graph, I think I'm going to choose the one that has the intercept point and the maximum. So I'm going to note an intercept point here that is at pi twelfths. So when I go to graph it, I'll click the one that does the intercept and click on pi twelfths and then the maximum. So let's figure out where that maximum occurs. This was pi twelfths, this is 2 pi twelfths, this is 3 pi twelfths right here, which is the same thing as pi over 4. So I need to put the maximum at pi fourths. So let's go ahead now and go to the graph on the computer. So let's go ahead and do this graph then. I'm going to choose this second choice because I picked an intercept and a maximum. The intercept was at pi twelfths. Well, this first tick mark is pi fourths, so think of dividing that in thirds, and that first third of the way I'm going to click for my first point. And then we knew that the maximum occurred at pi fourths, so I'm going to go up here and click at pi fourths. And there's my graph.